Chapter 1. The Life I Lost. My name is Barry. I was born into love. My father Richard cared for me every day. My mother Anna gave me warmth. We lived together in peace. I was their only son. They gave me attention, care, and hope. I never felt alone. I never felt weak. I thought life would always be like this. My father was my guide. He used to sit with me at night. He told me simple things. He said, "Work hard, tell the truth, respect people, never give up." He also wrote his thoughts in a diary. That book was full of life lessons. I did not understand all of them when I was young, but I loved watching him write. He said, "One day, Barry, these words will help you when I am gone." I never thought that day would come so soon. My mother was soft and kind. She made sure I was never hungry. She stood by me when I was sick. She listened to me when I was sad. She laughed when I made jokes. She held my hand when I was afraid. She was not just my mother. She was my friend. Then everything broke. My father started to get sick. He worked long hours at his office. He ignored his health. He had chest pain many times, but he did not tell us. One night after dinner he fell. My mother screamed, "Richard!" I held his hand and shouted, "Dad, please stay with me." We rushed him to the hospital. The doctors tried, but his heart had given up. The stress and the long days had killed him. I still remember his last words to me. He whispered, "Barry, be strong. Take care of your mother. Live with dignity." And then he was gone. That night broke me. I cried like a child. I was 24, but felt like a boy again. My mother held me and cried even louder. We both lost the man we loved the most. The house was silent. The chair where he used to sit was empty. The diary was still there on the table, full of his handwriting, but he was gone forever. I stayed in my room and cried for days. I refused food. I refused to meet people. My mother knocked on my door and said, "Barry, you must eat." Please, for me, I opened the door and hugged her. We both cried until there were no tears left. Life after his death was hard. My mother tried to stay strong. She went to work. She cooked for me. She told me we would survive. But I could see the sadness in her eyes. I often said, "Mom, we have each other. We will be fine." She smiled, but I knew her heart was broken. I started reading my father's diary every night. His words felt alive. One line said, "Pain is a teacher. Do not run from it." Another line said, "Strength comes when you feel weak, but still stand up." I read and cried, but I also felt hope. It was like my father was still talking to me. My mother sometimes sat beside me when I read. She said, "He loved you so much." "You were his pride," I replied. "I will try to be the man he wanted me to be." She hugged me, and we both tried to believe it. Still, nothing felt normal. Every corner of the house reminded us of him. His jacket was still hanging. His books were still on the shelf. His voice was gone, but his presence was everywhere. Sometimes I dreamed he was alive, and when I woke up, I cried again. Friends came to visit. They said, "Barry, be strong." But they did not know how it felt. Only I knew what it meant to lose a father who was also my teacher. Only I knew what it meant to see my mother cry alone at night. One evening, I found my mother in the living room. She was holding my father's shirt and crying. She said, "Why did he leave me? Why so soon?" I sat beside her and said, "Mom, he loved us. He would never leave us if he had a choice. We must live the life he wanted for us." She nodded, but her eyes were empty. The weeks passed, but the pain did not go away. My mother tried to smile for me, but I saw her loneliness. I tried to act strong for her, but inside, I was broken. We were two people in the same house, but both of us were missing the same man. I thought the pain would slowly fade, but I was wrong. That pain was the start of a new life, a life I never asked for, a life that would soon change in ways I could not imagine. Like subscribe and share. Click the hype button to hype the video. Give super thanks to support us. Chapter 2. A Stranger in Our Home. After my father died, life felt like a slow storm. My mother and I tried to hold on, but there was always emptiness. We missed him in every moment. I read his diary. She looked at his clothes. We ate in silence. We cried in silence. The days turned into months. It was after 6 months that something new began. My mother started to talk about a man she met. His name was Watson. She said he worked at her office. She said he was kind. At first, I did not pay attention. I thought maybe she just needed someone to talk to. But slowly, I saw the change. She spoke his name again and again. One evening, she said, "Barry, you should meet Watson. He is a good man. He helps me when I feel weak." I froze. I asked, "Why do you need him? Don't you have me?" She looked at me with sad eyes and said, "You are my son. You are my strength." But sometimes a woman needs a friend who understands her in other ways. Her words cut me like a knife. The next week, Watson came to our house. I still remember the first time I saw him. He walked in with a smile. He shook my hand and said, "Barry, I have heard a lot about you." I pulled my hand back quickly. I did not want him there. In my heart, he was not a guest. He was an intruder. After he left, I asked my mother, "Why are you bringing him here?" She sighed and said, "He makes me laugh again. You know how much pain I carry. Please don't hate him without knowing him." I answered with anger, "Dad is gone only 6 months and you are already smiling with another man. How can you do this?" Tears filled her eyes. She whispered, "I am lonely too, Barry. I miss your father every day. But Watson helps me breathe." I went to my room and slammed the door. I held my father's diary and cried. I whispered, "Dad, if you were here, this would never happen." She would never need anyone else. I felt betrayed. I felt like my mother was slipping away from me. Time moved forward. Watson began to visit more often. Sometimes he brought food. Sometimes he fixed small things in the house. My mother smiled when he was around. I hated it. Every time I saw her laugh at his words, my heart broke. It felt like she was forgetting my father. One night, I told her directly, "Mom, please stop this. I can't watch you give his place to someone else." She held my face and said, "Barry, No one can replace your father. I loved him. I still love him. But I cannot live only in sorrow. Watson is just helping me live again. I pulled away and shouted, "You are wrong. You are destroying everything Dad built." She cried and said, "I am still your mother." Nothing can change that. But her voice was weak, and I could see the truth. She was already tied to Watson. Months passed, and their friendship grew stronger. I saw the small signs. She dressed differently. She spent more time outside. Sometimes she came home late, and when I asked where she was, she said softly, "With Watson." Those words broke me every time. I talked to one of my father's old friends, Mr. Allen. I told him, "My mother is moving on. I can't bear it." He placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "Barry, grief does strange things. Sometimes people look for light anywhere they can find it. She may not be betraying your father. She may just be trying to survive." I nodded, but deep inside I could not accept it. One evening, I confronted her again. "Mom, are you in love with him?" She stayed silent. I asked again, louder, "Tell me the truth. Do you love Watson?" She lowered her head and whispered, "Yes, I think I do." My heart cracked open. I shouted, "How can you say that? What about Dad?" She cried, "I will always love your father, but my heart cannot stay empty forever. Watson has given me life again." I walked out of the room. I felt the ground under me shaking. I told myself, "She is gone. She is not mine anymore." I read my father's diary that night. One line said, "Life will hurt you. People you love will make choices you cannot control, but never lose yourself." I held on to those words, but my pain was deep. The next week, my mother told me her final decision. She said, "Barry, I am going to marry Watson." I shouted, "No! You can't do this. I won't let you." She held my hands and cried, "Please understand. I need him. I need someone by my side. I cannot live only as a widow. I need love again." I begged her, "Mom, think about me. Think about Dad. He would never accept this." She shook her head and said, "Barry, I cannot live for the dead. I must live for the living." Her words hit me like fire. I felt betrayed not only as a son, but also as a man who still loved his father's memory. That night I prayed to my father. I said, "Dad, I am sorry. I could not protect her. She has chosen someone else. She has chosen a stranger over us." I felt lost. The wedding was simple, but to me it was a funeral. I stood far from the crowd. I watched my mother smile beside Watson. My hands were shaking. My chest felt heavy. I whispered, "This is not right. This is not my family anymore." After the wedding, Watson looked at me with cold eyes. He said, "You will have to learn to live with this." I stared at him and answered, "I will never accept you. You are not my father." He smirked and walked away. My mother came to me later. She tried to hug me. She said, "Barry, please don't hate me." I had no choice. I pulled back and said, "You always had a choice. You just didn't choose me." Her tears fell, but my heart had turned to stone. That night I sat with my father's diary again. I read one line again and again. "When you feel abandoned, Do not break. Stand taller. I told myself I would try. But I also knew life was about to get harder. I lost my father once, and now I had lost my mother too. Like, subscribe, and share. Click the hype button to hype the video. Give super thanks to support us. Chapter 3. The Marriage That Broke Me. The day my mother married Watson, I felt like a stranger in my own life. People were smiling. My mother was trying to look happy, but inside I was screaming. I wanted to stop her. I wanted to shout in front of everyone, "This is wrong!" But I stayed silent. I felt weak. When the ceremony was over, I walked away. I could not even look at them together. My mother called out, "Barry, please wait." I turned and said, "You already made your choice. You don't need me anymore." She cried, but I left. That night I sat in my father's chair with his diary in my hands. I whispered, "Dad, I lost her too. She belongs to someone else now." The days after the wedding were heavy. Watson moved into our lives fully. He was not kind to me. He did not try to be my family. He treated me like a problem. He told my mother, "He is grown up. He does not need you anymore. Send him away." I heard him say this. My chest burned with anger. One night, I went to my mother and said, "Mom, is this what you wanted? To let him push me out?" She held my hand and said, "No, Barry, I love you. But I must also make peace in my marriage." I shouted, "What about peace in our family? What about me?" She cried and said, "Please, don't make me choose." But I knew she already had. Watson started to control more. He decided what we ate, where we went, how the money was spent. He wanted everything his way. One day he looked at me and said, "Barry, you need to think about your own life. Go to a hostel." "Start fresh," I replied sharply. "This is my father's house. I will never leave it." He laughed and said, "Your father is gone. This house belongs to Anna now, and she is my wife." Those words cut me like a blade. I turned to my mother. "Mom, do you hear him? Do you see how he talks about Dad?" She lowered her head and said nothing. My heart broke again. I said, "If Dad was alive, he would never let this happen." Watson shouted, "But he is not alive." I am here now. I could not control my anger. I stood and said, "You will never be my father. You will never take his place." My mother stepped between us, crying. She said, "Stop it. I can't take this fight every day." I looked at her and said, "Then you decide, Mom. Do you want him or do you want me?" She stayed silent. That silence gave me my answer. The next week, they told me their plan. My mother said carefully, "Barry, we are moving to a new apartment. You can stay here in this house if you want, but we need to live separately." I asked in shock, "You want to leave me here alone?" She whispered, "It is for peace." "Please understand," Watson added coldly, "this way everyone will be happy. We don't want you around us, and you can live in your father's house." I felt dizzy. I said, "Mom, you are abandoning me." She cried, "No, Barry. I will still visit you. I will still love you." I answered, "Love does not leave someone behind." On the day they packed, I stood by the door. I watched them take their things. My mother hugged me tightly. She said, "Please take care of yourself." I whispered, "You are choosing him over me." She shook her head and said, "I am trying to live, Barry." I pulled away and said, "Then go live. But don't expect me to call this family." When they drove away, I stood in silence. The house was empty again, but this time it was worse than my father's death. When my father died, life took him away. But when my mother left, she chose to go. That pain was deeper. That night, I opened my father's diary. One line stared back at me. "When people leave, you must not leave yourself. Hold on." I cried for hours. I said out loud, "Dad, I am trying, but it hurts too much." I looked around at the house. It was mine now, but it felt cold. I was 24, and I was already abandoned. My life had broken in two pieces. One piece was the memory of my father. The other was the betrayal of my mother. I promised myself, I will not break. I will not give up. If they leave me, I will learn to live alone. That promise was the only light I had left. Like, subscribe, and share. Click the hype button to hype the video. Give super thanks to support us. Chapter 4. Alone in my father's house. When my mother and Watson left, silence became my only company. I stood in the empty house and felt the weight of loneliness. I was not a child anymore, but that day I felt weaker than I had ever felt before. They had chosen to live their new life. I was left behind to survive in the shadow of what used to be a family. At first, I thought maybe my mother would visit often. Maybe she would call me every day. But days passed, and there was only silence. I realized slowly that I was truly on my own. The pain of that truth was sharp. It was not death this time. It was choice. My own mother chose to walk away. Food became my first struggle. The fridge was almost empty. I searched for whatever was left. I ate plain bread, sometimes just rice with salt. Some nights there was nothing, and I slept with hunger burning inside me. I whispered into the air, "Dad, I am trying." But it is so hard I started looking for small jobs. I washed dishes in a diner. I carried boxes in a warehouse. I delivered packages in the cold nights. People did not notice me. To them, I was just another worker. But to me, each dollar was survival. Each hour of work was proof that I was still standing. One night, after a long shift, I came home exhausted. I sat on the floor and cried. I opened my father's diary again. His words stared back at me. "Strength comes when you are weak. Keep standing." I read those lines again and again. I held the diary close and whispered, "Dad, this is all I have. Your words keep me alive." There were moments I wanted to give up. Times when I thought, what is the point of living like this? But then I remembered my father's last words in the hospital. Be strong. Take care of your mother. I felt like I was failing because she was gone. But I told myself, I will still honor his words by taking care of myself. My body became thin. My hands became rough from work. But inside, something was slowly growing. A quiet strength. A stubborn will. Every struggle made me harder. Every tear made me wiser. I remember one day clearly. I had no money for food. I sat with the diary and read a line. When you have nothing, remember you still have yourself. I closed the book and decided to fight harder. I walked out and found another job, even if it paid little. I worked with pain in my stomach but still pushed on. That night I told myself, I survived another day. That is victory. My mother sometimes called, but her voice was distant. She asked, "Are you eating well?" I wanted to scream, "No, Mom!" I am starving. I am broken, but I only said, "I am fine," because I did not want her pity. She had made her choice. Once, Watson's voice came on the phone. He said coldly, "Barry, you need to stop depending on your mother. Live your own life." I clenched my teeth and answered, "Don't worry." I already am, I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt proud. I was no longer afraid of him. Nights were the hardest. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Memories of my father filled my mind. His laughter, his voice, his touch. I cried silently. I whispered, "Dad, I wish you were here. You would never have let this happen." The house felt like a tomb, but the diary was my only light. I began to write in it too. On the blank pages at the back, I wrote my own lines. I wrote, "I am still here. I am not broken. I will rise." Writing gave me strength. It felt like I was speaking back to him. Months passed this way, struggle after struggle, but I noticed something inside me was changing. I was not just surviving. I was learning. I was becoming someone my father would be proud of. One day, after another long shift, I looked in the mirror. My face was tired. My clothes were worn, but my eyes were stronger. I said to myself, "You are still here. You did not give up. That means you are winning." That night, I opened the diary again. I read one line, and it felt like my father was speaking directly to me. One day, the pain you feel will become the reason for your success. I closed my eyes and held on to those words. I did not know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I would not fall. I would not let their choice destroy me. I was alone in my father's house, but I was not finished. My journey had just begun. Like, subscribe and share. Click the hype button to hype the video. Give super thanks to support us. Chapter 5. The Mask Falls Off. When my mother and Watson left me alone, I thought maybe they would live in peace. I tried not to think about them, but news traveled back to me through people who still knew my mother. At first, they said she looked happy. She dressed better. She smiled more. She went out often. It hurt me, but I told myself, if she is happy, maybe I should let her be. But happiness built on lies never lasts. Slowly, I started hearing different stories. One of my mother's friends told me, "Barry, your mom does not look the same anymore. She looks tired. She looks worried." I knew why. I knew it was Watson. My mother called me one night. Her voice was weak. She said, "Barry, how are you?" I answered, "I am fine. I am surviving." Then I asked, "How are you, Mom?" There was silence. Then she whispered, "I am trying." I asked, Is Watson good to you? She did not reply. I said again, Tell me the truth, Mom. She broke into tears and said, Sometimes he is kind. Sometimes he is not. I felt my stomach turn. I shouted, Why did you choose him then? Why, Mom? She cried. Because I was lonely. I thought he loved me. That night, I closed my eyes and felt a storm inside me. She had left me for him, and now he was hurting her. I felt anger, but I also felt pity. She had chosen wrong, and she was paying the price. Weeks later, I met an old family friend at the store. He looked at me and said, Barry, I saw Watson. He was with another woman. They looked close. My chest tightened. I asked, Did my mother see them? He shook his head and said, I don't think so. I felt my hands shake. I whispered to myself, Dad, this is what she left us for. I decided to call her again. I asked directly, Mom, is Watson faithful to you? She said, Why are you asking that? I replied, Because I heard something. Please don't hide from me. She cried and said, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like he is not mine completely, but I cannot lose him. I already lost your father. I cannot lose again. Her words broke me. I said, Mom, you already lost me. You just don't see it. She tried to stop me. Barry, don't talk like that. But it was the truth. She had given up her son for a man who did not even respect her. Watson's mask was falling off, and everyone could see it. He became controlling. He decided what my mother did with her money. He told her who she could meet. He shouted at her when she questioned him. She told me once, He gets angry fast. I tried to stay quiet. I shouted, That is not love. That is prison. She whispered, I know, but I don't want to be alone again. Her pain started to grow, and so did mine. Every time she cried to me, I remembered the day she chose him over me. A part of me wanted to say, You deserve this. But another part of me said, She is still my mother. That fight inside me tore me apart. One evening, she called again. Her voice was full of fear. She said, Barry, we fought badly today. He said terrible things. I asked, Did he hurt you? She said, Not with his hands, but with his words. He said I was useless. He said he never loved me the way I thought. I felt rage. I wanted to find him and shout in his face. I said, Mom, leave him. Come back to me. She cried, I can't. I don't know how. That night I opened my father's diary. One line said, Truth always shows itself. A mask cannot hide forever, I whispered. Dad, you were right. His mask has fallen, but she is too blind to see the months turned into years. Watson kept changing women. My mother kept hiding her pain. Their marriage was breaking, piece by piece. And I kept building myself, piece by piece. I worked more jobs. I studied at night. I started dreaming of something bigger. Every time I felt weak, I opened the diary and found a new line. It felt like my father knew this day would come. His words became my shield. My mother visited me once. She looked thinner, older, weaker. I asked, Mom, are you happy? She looked away and said, I thought I would be. But life is not what I imagined. I held her hand and said, I am still here. Even if you left me, I am still your son. She cried in silence. I could see the regret in her eyes, but she did not say it aloud. Watson's mask was almost gone now. He was showing his true self every day. My mother was trapped in a cage she had built with her own hands, and I was watching from a distance, powerless, but still alive. I told myself again, one day the truth will break her heart, but maybe then she will see who really loved her. Like, subscribe and share. Click the hype button to hype the video. Give super thanks to support us. Chapter 6. Lessons Turn into Success. The more my mother suffered with Watson, the more I told myself I had to rise. I could not live broken forever. I could not spend my life waiting for someone to save me. I had to save myself. My father's diary became my teacher. Each night I opened it and read. One page said, "Pain is heavy, but it can build muscles of the soul." Another page said, "Do not let failures stop you. Failures are the steps to success." I repeated those lines like prayers. I whispered, "Dad, I will not give up. I will not waste the life you gave me." I worked in the day and studied in the night. I read books borrowed from libraries. I practiced writing like my father used to. I wrote my own thoughts in the back of his diary. I wrote, "I will grow. I will fight. I will not be weak again." My body was tired most days. My hands had cuts from work. My eyes burned from reading at night. But inside, something strong was growing. Every day I felt closer to the man my father wanted me to become. I started saving money. At first it was small, just a few dollars, but I kept adding. I stopped buying things I didn't need. I ate simple food. I told myself, every dollar saved today will be a brick for tomorrow. One day I decided to take a step. I used my savings to start something small. I bought second-hand books. I repaired them and sold them on weekends. At first, people laughed. Some said, "Why waste time? This will not work." But I kept going. I remembered my father's words. When others laugh, keep walking. Slowly, people started buying. They saw I was honest. They saw I cared. I did not cheat. I gave fair prices. Customers trusted me. They came back again. That trust was more valuable than money. I began to dream bigger. I thought, if I can sell books, I can also teach what I learned from Dad's diary. I started small meetings with young people. I told them simple lessons. I said, don't lie, work hard, respect yourself. Some listened, some ignored. But I kept speaking. Each word felt like a tribute to my father. I failed many times, too. Sometimes I invested money and lost it. Sometimes no one showed up to listen. Sometimes I felt so tired I wanted to quit. But then I read one line again. Winners are not people who never fall. Winners are people who rise every time they fall. I wiped my tears and stood up again. Years passed this way. I was no longer the boy crying in an empty house. I was a man building his own name. My small work grew, my talks became bigger, my sales improved. I started earning enough to eat well, to dress well, to live with dignity. One evening, I looked at my reflection. I whispered, "Dad, I hope you are proud of me. I am not rich yet, but I am not weak anymore. I opened the diary and added a line of my own. I survived. And now I am growing. People started to invite me to share my story. I stood in front of strangers and spoke about my struggles. I told them about my father's diary. Some cried when they heard me. Some thanked me for giving them hope. That was the moment I felt true success. It was not money. It was not fame. It was the power to touch hearts with my pain. I was still alone in my house. My mother was still with Watson. But inside, I was no longer broken. I was building a new life, step by step. And I told myself again, this is just the beginning. Like, subscribe, and share. Click the hype button to hype the video. Give super thanks to support us. Chapter 7. The Fall of Watson. As my life began to rise, Watson's life began to fall. I was building myself with pain, but he was destroying himself with his choices. It started quietly, small cracks, but soon the truth became too big to hide. My mother called me one night. Her voice was shaking. She said, "Barry, we are not doing well. Watson has changed. He is angry all the time. He blames me for everything." I closed my eyes and breathed slowly. I asked, "Mom, are you safe?" She whispered, "Safe, yes. But happy? No." My heart ached. I wanted to tell her, "I warned you," but I only said, "You deserve better, Mom." She cried and said, "I know." Months passed. I heard more stories about Watson. He was spending money carelessly. He was seen with other women. He stopped coming home some nights. My mother tried to hide it, but I could hear the truth in her voice. She was breaking inside. One evening, she came to my house. She looked weaker than before. She said, "Barry, he has someone else." "I can feel it." I asked softly, "Then why are you still with him?" She held her face in her hands and said, "Because I am afraid of being alone. I thought he was my last chance." Tears rolled down her cheeks. I placed my hand on hers and said, "Mom, you were never alone. You just forgot me." She cried louder and whispered, "I made a mistake." Watson's downfall came faster after that. He lost money in business. He shouted at my mother more. He started drinking. He blamed her for his failures. She told me once, he called me useless. He said I brought him bad luck. I clenched my fists and said, "That is not love. That is cruelty." One day, my mother's friend told me the final truth. She said, "Barry, Watson has left. He has gone with another woman. He is not coming back." I felt both anger and relief. Anger that he had hurt my mother so deeply. Relief that his mask was gone forever. My mother came to me soon after. She was shaking. She said, "He left me. He took my money. He walked away without looking back." She fell into my arms and cried like a child. She whispered, "Barry, I lost everything." I held her close and said, "You did not lose everything. You still have me." In that moment, I saw the truth. Watson's fall was complete. He had destroyed his own life with lies and greed. My mother was left broken, and I was the only one still standing. That night, I opened my father's diary again. One line said, "Those who build on lies will fall. Those who build on truth will rise. I smiled through my tears. I whispered, Dad, you were right again. He has fallen, and I am still here. For years I had carried anger against my mother, but when I saw her sitting in front of me, empty and weak, my anger began to melt. She looked at me with red eyes and said, Barry, will you ever forgive me? I stayed quiet for a long moment. Then I said, I don't know yet, but I will never leave you. She cried harder, and I knew her regret was real. Watson's fall was the end of her mistake, and the start of my chance to heal with her. Like, subscribe and share. Click the hype button to hype the video. Give super thanks to support us. Chapter 8. Forgiveness and Home. When Watson left my mother, she came back to me broken. She had nothing in her hands. She had no money. She had no partner. She had no strength. All she had left was regret. I looked at her and felt both pain and love. Pain for what she had done. Love for who she was, my mother. She sat in front of me, her face full of tears. She said, Barry, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I left you for a man who never cared about me. I hurt you when you needed me most. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I stayed quiet. I let her cry. Then I said softly, You are still my mother. You may have hurt me, but I cannot hate you. Her hands shook as she touched mine. She whispered, Will you let me stay with you? Or will you send me away like I sent you away? My heart broke at her words. I pulled her close and said, I will never send you away. I am not him. I am your son. For the first time in years, she cried in my arms like she used to when I was small. She said again and again, I am sorry, Barry. I am so sorry. I held her tighter and whispered, It is over now. You are home. The days that followed were not easy. She carried shame inside her. Sometimes she sat silently and said, I ruined everything. I told her, You lost years, but you did not lose me. We still have time. She cried and said, How can you forgive me so easily? I answered, Because Dad taught me. He told me to live with dignity, and dignity means forgiveness. We ate together again. We spoke again. We even laughed again, slowly. Each moment felt like a new life. She said one evening, I feel like I am seeing you for the first time. You are no longer a boy. You are a man. Stronger than I ever imagined, I smiled and said, I became this man because of the pain you gave me. But I forgive you for it. Her eyes filled with tears again. She whispered, I don't deserve you, Barry. I held her hand and said, You don't have to deserve me. You just have to be my mother. I told her everything about my journey, how I read Dad's diary every night, how I worked small jobs, how I built my own path. She listened carefully. She said, Richard was right. His words saved you, and they saved me too, because they brought me back to you. I showed her the pages where I had written my own lines. She touched them and said, Your father would be so proud of you. I looked at her and said, That is all I wanted, to make him proud. The world outside saw me as a man who became successful. They saw my work, my talks, my growing business. But inside, my real success was this moment, sitting beside my mother again, not as enemies, but as family. One night, she said something that stayed in my heart forever. She said, "When your father died, I felt empty. I thought Watson could fill that emptiness, but he could not. He only took more from me. The truth is, the only person who truly filled my heart was you. And I left you. I will never forgive myself for that." I lifted her chin and looked into her eyes. I said, "Then let me forgive you. Take my forgiveness and let it heal you. Dad would not want us to waste the rest of our life in regret." She nodded and cried again, but this time her tears were softer. Slowly, we built a new life. She cooked for me again. I cared for her again. We sat together and read Dad's diary. Sometimes she read a line and smiled. Sometimes I read a line and cried, but every line brought us closer. The anger inside me was gone. The pain was still there, but it was no longer heavy. It had turned into strength. My father's words had come true. One day, the pain you feel will become the reason for your success. He was right. Without that pain, I would not have grown. Without that pain, I would not have forgiven. I looked at my mother one evening and said, "We lost years, but we still have time. Let's live it well." She nodded and held my hand. She said, "I will never leave you again." That night, I closed the diary for the last time. I whispered, "Dad, I kept my promise. I took care of her. I did not let her fall alone. I hope you can rest now. I finally felt peace. Not because I became successful, not because I earned respect, but because I forgave. Forgiveness gave me back my family. Forgiveness gave me back my mother. And that was the true ending of my story. Like, subscribe and share. Click the hype button to hype the video. Give super thanks to support us. The end.